How early humans survived the coldest time on Earth. 90% of the northern hemisphere was buried under ice sheets 3 kilometers thick. Not a cold winter, not a harsh season, a geological condition that lasted, in its most severe phases, for tens of thousands of years. The species that eventually became us was present for all of it, and the biology that allowed us to survive had almost nothing to do with strength. The last glacial maximum, the period of peak cold during the most recent ice age, reached its lowest point approximately 21,000 years ago. At that time, global average temperatures ran roughly 6 degrees Celsius colder than today. That number sounds manageable until you apply it to geography. Ice sheets 2 to 3 kilometers thick covered what is now Canada, Scandinavia, and northern Russia. Sea levels sat approximately 120 meters lower than they are today, exposing land bridges that connected continents. The English Channel did not exist. The land between Siberia and Alaska, Beringia, was dry, open steppe, and people walked across it. In Central Europe during winter, temperatures at ground level likely dropped below minus 25 degrees Celsius for months at a time. In Siberia, where some of the most complete archaeological records of Ice Age occupation exist, conditions during glacial winters were almost certainly colder than the winters Siberia experiences today, and today the Siberian interior regularly records minus 40 degrees Celsius in January. At those temperatures, exposed skin begins to freeze within minutes. The body responds by constricting peripheral blood flow to protect core organs, which accelerates frostbite in extremities, fingers, toes, ears, the nose. The cardiovascular system works continuously against the cold, burning caloric energy at a rate that is difficult to sustain without reliable, dense food sources. The archaeological record from sites across Europe and Siberia shows that early modern humans addressed this in several intersecting ways, none of which was improvised. The first was clothing technology. At the Sungir site in Russia, dated to approximately 32,000 years ago, researchers from the Russian Academy of Sciences documented burials in which the dead were interred, wearing garments decorated with thousands of individually drilled ivory beads. The arrangement of those beads indicates tailored, fitted clothing, not wrapped hides, but sewn constructions with sleeves, legs, and closures designed to trap body heat. Bone needles recovered from multiple sites across Europe and Asia dating to between 30 and 20,000 years ago confirmed the production of stitched garments. The needle is not a minor artifact. Without the ability to produce tight seams, wind penetrates layered clothing, destroying its insulating capacity. Fitted, sewn clothing that blocks wind at the neck, wrists, and ankles retains heat with a fundamentally different efficiency than loosely worn hides. The second was fire management. Hearths at Ice Age sites are not scattered features. They are structured, repeated, and often located within enclosed or semi-enclosed spaces. At Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, excavations revealed hearths inside structures with post holes, suggesting walls and possibly roofs. These were not temporary camps. They were built environments, occupied repeatedly, designed to retain heat in a landscape where ambient temperatures were lethal to an unprotected body. The third was diet. Ice Age megafauna, mammoth, woolly rhinoceros, bison, horse, carried caloric profiles that sustained communities through months of cold. Fat, specifically, was the critical substrate. At minus 20 degrees Celsius, the human body increases its resting metabolic rate to maintain core temperature, and that increase is fueled primarily by fat. The communities that survived the glacial maximum were killing and processing large animals, rendering their fat, and storing or consuming it at the rates necessary to offset thermogenic demand. Isotopic analysis of human bone from multiple European Ice Age sites, published by researchers including those at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, confirms that these populations were consuming large mammal protein and fat at very high proportions of their total diet. The fourth was social structure. No single individual survives prolonged extreme cold in isolation. The logistical demands of Ice Age survival, hunting large prey, processing carcasses, constructing and maintaining shelters, gathering plant material during brief warm seasons, moving between sites as resources shifted, required groups operating with coordinated labor. Children who cannot thermoregulate as effectively as adults and who lose heat faster due to their surface area to mass ratio required continuous attention. Elderly individuals who held knowledge of seasonal roots, water sources, and tool manufacturing were a functional resource the group could not afford to lose arbitrarily. The evidence for long-distance exchange of materials, flint, shells, ochre, across hundreds of kilometers, suggests that different groups were in contact, which means information and possibly people moved between communities. None of this was automatic. The Neanderthal populations who preceded modern humans in Europe had survived previous glacial cycles and had fire, hafted tools, and some form of social living. They disappeared. The precise mechanism of their disappearance remains scientifically unresolved, but one significant difference between Neanderthals and the modern humans who replaced them may have been the range and flexibility of their technological and social responses to environmental stress. Neanderthal clothing, based on available evidence, was less tailored. Their range networks appear to have been smaller. Their population densities were lower. Modern humans arrived in Europe approximately 45,000 years ago and survived conditions that, at their most severe, the human body has no biological adaptation to tolerate without technology. The cold did not become less dangerous. The technology became more precise. Today, the Siberian site of Yana RHS, excavated by the Russian Academy of Sciences and dated to approximately 32,000 years ago, sits at 71 degrees north latitude, well above the Arctic Circle. At that site, researchers found worked mammoth bone, ivory tools, and evidence of consistent human occupation during one of the coldest periods in the region's recent geological history. The people who left those tools behind were not surviving at the margins of the possible. They were apparently thriving. The ice has retreated. The animals they hunted are extinct. The clothing techniques they refined are still the basis for every garment designed for extreme cold today. The core principle has not changed: fitted construction, layered insulation, sealed seams. What early humans worked out over generations of necessity, modern cold-weather gear engineers work out in laboratories. The distance between those 2 points is 20,000 years. The physics of heat loss through an unsealed seam is exactly the same.